Well, good afternoon, folks. And we're here with another installment of Tampa Black Business Investment Corporation's podcast. And we're talking to another exciting entrepreneur. This afternoon, I have with me Mr. Julius Davis. Julius is the president and CEO of Volt Air. And I'm going to let Julius talk to you a little bit more about his company here in a moment. But as you all know, that one of the things that the BBIC does is we try to put business owners together. That's the reason we have the mixers, and that's the reason we have these podcasts. We have a lot of individuals out there, African-American business owners that are doing dynamic and great things. And many people don't know that they're out there doing these things. So we try to bring these things to the table, give you an opportunity and expose you to these individuals and expose them to you. So this afternoon, we're going to have one of our conversations to talk about business. And like I said, we have Mr. Julius Davis here. And I want Julius to start off and tell us a little bit about your company. Talk to us about Volt Air and what Volt Air does. And how did you decide to start Volt Air? And then we'll talk about some of the things you had to do to put things in place to grow Volt Air.
Right. Okay. All right. Again, I'm Julius Davis, the president, CEO of and founder of Volt Air Consulting Engineers, which is now Volt Air Inc. Volt Air was founded 12 years ago here in Tampa. We're headquartered here in Tampa. And what we do, we provide mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection sprinkler systems, information technology inside buildings. So most of our clients are architects. So architects design the building, mostly commercial, and we do all the HVAC designs. We do all the electrical designs, fire alarm, security systems, lighting, power outlets. We do all the plumbing designs, sinks, toilets, piping, and then, like I said, all the sprinkler systems. Most of our projects, like I said, is commercials, airports, city of Tampa, and multifamily facilities. And so that's what we do. We also provide electrical contracting services as well, which is a company I acquired about 4 years ago, electrical contracting side. So we do design build on the electrical side with the plan to be a full design build, mechanical, plumbing, fire, electrical firm.
Okay. And how did how did Volt Air start? Because like you said, 4 years ago, you acquired an electrical contractor.
Right.
Prior to that, what was the primary service that Volt Air provided? And what was your professional experience that led you to start Volt Air?
Right. Well, let me back up a little bit. I went to graduated from University of South Florida and got my electrical engineering degree from there in '93. And I worked for 10 years, 12 years or so for a company. I started out in Tallahassee. It was a company that provided the same services that Volt Air does now. And my initial plan when I graduated was to become a communications engineer. That's what I wanted to do. I went up there that's how I ended up in Tallahassee. I went to Florida A&M University to work on my master's in electrical engineering, concentrating in communications. Then I started interning for this company that I came from. And as I was working there, I saw then what I'm doing now. I saw an opportunity. I said, this is something that I can, if I wanted to pursue entrepreneurship, this is something that I see myself doing versus, opening up, which not to say I couldn't or not possibility, but, opening up another AT&T network or a Verizon network. I felt that this is something that was reachable for me. So I changed my career then. And started working for this company with the option of actually going on my own when I wanted to. When the time came that I saw that opportunity that I wanted to start my own company, prior to doing that, with an engineering degree, I had no business knowledge at all. Okay,
Yeah, the technical knowledge, but not the business knowledge.
The business. So what I did, I for 2 years while I was working for this company, I went and took classes at Small Business Development Center that USF had, and other classes, and
Good resource.
right. And the classes they offer is how to start your business, how to do a business plan, how to understand business taxes, business finances, marketing, all these things. It was about 2 years of that. Some classes I took 2 or 3 times, and then I had read books like Jim Collins books. I read all those, Good to Great, How Businesses Fail, and just and then I read autobiographies like Earl Graves, Ted Turner,
Okay.
and other successful entrepreneurs. And the purpose of me doing that was not only to learn from their experiences, but when you start reading books like that, and reading about people and meeting with people and having lunch with people, you're starting to think
That's right.
like an entrepreneur.
And it motivates
So
you.
I was training myself to be able to do that, and know what to look for, know what to watch out for. So 2 years later, I started Voltaire, and that was in 2006. And I was, at that time, I felt I was prepared. I had my business plan. I had my business, my attorney at the time, and all my accountants at the time, and felt that I was ready. I saved up enough money, and that's pretty much how I started.
Now, did you incur loans when you first started, or you did it out of pocket? You saved up money and did it
Yeah,
yourself?
I did it out of pocket. I started out with a business partner.
Okay.
We both came from the same firm, and we started doing small projects on the side, and that wasn't projects that was competing with the company who we were working for. We were doing small things like renovation of a conference room inside a lawyer's office. We did several projects like those, to the point where we felt we saved up enough money that would allow us to start, for the first few months of business. We knew we needed a plotter, we knew we needed a copier, we knew that we needed the software, the AutoCAD, and everything else needed to get started. And that's pretty much what we did. So we didn't have to take out a loan at the time, and we were fortunate with that. And because I had a doing my job where I was working for a larger firm, I treated clients very well. So I established a good reputation with them, professional reputation, somebody who they can depend on, somebody who they trust, so that when I started on my own, these same clients already know who I am and know how I work, know my work ethics, that would make my marketing a little bit easier, so that I was able to be attractive to those clients, which it turned out to be successful. Tampa Airport was the main one that that pretty much helped me succeed to where I am today. So with that, we started out with some pretty decent projects that kind of help us grow a little bit. One of the things that we try to do to save money is not to have an office. So we worked out of our home like most startup entrepreneurs do. So that was interesting. But my business partner at the time, he lived in South St. Pete, and I lived in New Tampa. So we were in two opposite,
two
extreme
almost.
points of the Tampa Bay area. So when we had to meet and meet up and talk and have a discussion, we had our office location was at Starbucks, and then sometimes it was
That's a
at
favorite location for a lot of people.
At Panera Bread, and
Yep.
and to the point now, that only lasts for about a month, and we had to get an office space, because as we went around knocking on doors and passing out business cards, and when potential client asks, well, where's your office located? When I say living room
Right.
or bedroom, they immediately start closing their doors, so they feel that we weren't legit, and they didn't want to take a risk on somebody that that feel they didn't have the tools to work on a project. So we saw that being a handicap. We said, well, we need to go ahead and find us an office, so that we can legitimately say we're an office. Because one of the things that help us to be successful is that we always sold ourselves as an image of a well-established large company. You know, we invested in quality paper on the brochures. We invested websites. We invested everything that we could possibly did, so that when people hear our name or we talk our name or they see any type of market material, they have the impression that the company has been around a while and is more than just two people.
Right.
Okay, so so that was main thing too, is getting that office location. It was a first office we were able to find was an old house, 3-bedroom house, wooden house. It was located. It's still right there now. In fact, they still got an old sign. Our sign is still up at that location.
Is that right?
It's on the corner of Columbus and Albany, and it was a 3-bedroom house and 1 bathroom, and it was about maybe 1,100 square foot. And that's where we started, man. I had my first furniture was the metal card table with a metal chair, a laptop, and a flip phone.
Yeah.
And that's all I had in my office.
Well, you bring up some great points, when you talk about your progression, okay?
Yeah.
And again, that's business. You start out in one spot, and then it progresses, and these things happen sort of organically. They just
Right.
kind of begin to happen. Necessity begins to drive the need to do things.
Yeah.
But one of the things you did say, you took courses, okay?
Yes.
And you took courses that are available to almost all entrepreneurs. And that's
Yes.
one of the things we
That's
like to
right.
make people aware of, is the resources that are available to help. The Black Business Investment Corporation, we're one of those resources. I mean, one of the things we do is provide capital. But we also provide technical assistance, but we work with several other collaborative partners that also provide technical assistance. You mentioned
Right.
one, the Small Business Development Center is one that we work with
Right.
on a regular basis. And and you can go there and get those basic classes that you need to know just to get some understanding,
Right.
so that you'll know how to approach your venture. So you did those things, and you obviously are a believer in education, because I think you eventually got your MBA as well,
Right.
right?
That's
Yeah.
right.
So,
Yep.
and intuitively, I'm assuming numbers kind of come to you being an engineering major.
Yes.
So process is important to you, and also presentation was important.
Right.
So again, you've got to go against firms that you know the competition, because you were working for one of those big competitors out there. And then when you guys started, you had to be able to make yourself appear to be as big or as good as
Right.
the other firms that are out there, and you did that. There's an old thing people say, fake it till you make it.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
you did that, and now you're at the point where you've made it, and you no longer have to fake it. So talk about the expansion of the business, because you guys have 6 offices now.
That's correct.
So you've gone from that 1,100 square foot 3-bedroom home on the corner of Albany and Columbus, and I know where it's located. And I
Yeah.
think you're right. That sign, I think, is still sitting
Still
out there.
up there, yeah.
And talk about now how you made the decision to open additional offices. And by the way, folks, they have a beautiful office that's in a hot area right now too.
Right, it
It's
is.
right down there around
Right.
from Armature Works. I don't know how you stay away from that place,
Hey,
man.
listen, at one time when we first moved there, it was just us
Nobody.
and the homeless people. Now it's we can't find, nobody wants to leave to go to lunch because they come back, they won't find a parking space. So it turned out to be a great location, and I'll talk about that while we end up at that location in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
How we end up expanding, that's interesting. It wasn't long. In fact, it was less than 2 years before we had a branch office.
Mm-hmm.
Because we started in 2006, 2007, 2008, that's when the economy
Tanked.
went south.
Yep.
So I got nervous. I got scared. It was just like, oh man,
We all did.
This is just great timing here. I done started a business, and now everything is starting to go the wrong direction. But Texas was doing well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and luckily, I had a fraternity brother of a very great fraternity.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yes. And he worked at he lived in Houston, and he worked at the Houston airport system. And he was able to introduce me to some of the people who he worked with at the time. And I was going back for about almost a year, once a month on my own dime, flying back and forth with the intent possibly of moving to Houston. Because here I started my business. I got to succeed. You do whatever it takes to succeed. Hey, if economy is going to hurt me here and Texas is doing well, let me move there, instead of just throwing up my hands. I just found different alternatives and ways to survive. And he, over a month's time, over a year's time, every month I would go up and I'd meet somebody at a higher level at the Houston airport system. And to the point where I got to the top CEO at the time. And again, back to those brochures, those high dollar, glossy, marketing materials. And with the presentation that I made to him and his staff, he was impressed with me. Okay, he was impressed with what we can do, and he was willing to have an opportunity to open up doors and have some opportunities working at the Houston airport. And the reason we went there, not only because of my connections I had with a friend of mine that was at the airport, but before I left the larger firm, I was doing a lot of design work at Tampa International Airport. So my biggest experience with commercial was aviation. So I marketed what my strength were at the time first, and everything else come into play. So we started working there. We got a small project. We got another project, and then we opened up an office in Houston. So at the time, I had an office in Tampa and then one in Houston. I was going back and forth. But come to find out that Tampa, we really didn't suffer through that whole
your company
recession.
You're saying your company
didn't. And hindsight looking at it is that actually that's the best time to start a business during recession, right? Because you don't have any overhead. Your fees and your cost of services are a little cheaper than most competitors because, again, you don't have any type of overhead to accommodate all that. So we actually started getting work because of that. And our business actually excelled because we were picking up work that, we provide service that our clients could afford. And on top of that, as our larger competitors were laying off people, by the time they got to the fifth level of layoffs, there was some pretty good,
some great talent out there.
I can get good quality staff for about a third of the cost that they were making at the larger companies. So, and then on top of that, they brought their clients with them. So that was a boost to our company, and we were able to grow where everybody else was tanking. We were just skyrocketing, and then Houston was doing well too. So then I had two companies growing at the same time. So that was my first satellite office. And then,
but I want to go back to this point because that is a great observation. You start at a time of adversity, and it actually ends up working out well for you. A lot of people say if you can do well in the downtime, then we all know when things start to prosper.
Right.
Then we just kind of bloom and blossom with it. But that is a great point you make. At a time when most people would have been saying, "Hey, maybe I need to go ahead and kind of wrap this up because things are tough. We need to batten down the hatches." It ended up benefiting you in that you're exactly right. Because you had low overhead, because you had not built all this infrastructure like the bigger companies,
right,
you could be more competitive at a time when people have become more cost conscious.
Yes.
And it allowed you to be able to outbid people, and people are more willing to take chances when things are tough.
Exactly.
Okay? And so it allowed you to gain and expand market share. And, it's funny, we see that happen with certain businesses when other competitors are suffering. You see other companies, they go after market share.
Right.
And it sounds like that's what you were able to do, and it ended up working out for you. So I just didn't want to miss that point because that is an amazing thing. And as entrepreneurs, many times you have to make tough decisions. Things that you're not sure and certain how they're going to work out. You could have said, well, I'm just going to stay here in Tampa. But you said, look, I got to go find some greener pasture too. I might be able to eat here in Tampa, but I got to go find somewhere else where I know I can possibly eat.
Right.
And you were willing to go do that as well
Yeah.
and make the investment of time. And like you say, spending your own money traveling back and forth, because that's not cheap. Let's face it.
Right.
That's not cheap. So with that, go ahead and talk about the
Yeah.
expansion, and then we'll hit on some key points that you think entrepreneurs need to know in order to make the businesses grow and thrive.
Right. So we had these two offices, Houston and Tampa, and of course that increased our clientele. Okay. Our main focus was the culture of the company and providing exceptional service. Okay, because anybody, I'm going to say anybody, but everybody can design. Okay, my competitors, they can design. Anybody can design, a facility. But what differentiates us between us and the competitors is the service, is how you are available to that client, how you, when the client needs to reach you, they can almost reach out and touch you. Okay, that was we knew that was advantage with us being a small company versus a larger company, because a small company and then starting out, when you're talking to me as an engineer, you're also talking to the decision maker. So we took advantage of that.
Okay.
So I mean, every time you get a call, I mean, we solve problems. We meet. It was. And it takes a lot of time and effort to do that, because during the day, the way we work during the day is marketing, because we got to take advantage of those hours when everybody's operational. So we're on doors, we're on phone calls, we having lunch and so forth. By the time 5 o'clock come, we had a routine. 5 o'clock come, we turn on the computer, we set up our AutoCAD, we set up everything we're going to do to get started on our work, what we're going to do productive at night. My partner and I we'll set that up. We'll go have dinner at McDonald's. Okay. And then once we do that, then we went to Starbucks to juice up with caffeine. And then went back to the office about 6 o'clock and stayed to about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, producing the work that we've been granted from the clients, so that we can have that work to them the next day or on time when the schedule permitted. Okay, so there was some sacrifice we had to do there. And, like they say, whatever time you put in, is the results you get out. The more time you put in, the better the results you have. There was a time here I live here, right here in Tampa. There was a time I was at the office and I never went home until I got there on Thursday. I was at the office on Thursday, never went home till Tuesday.
Wow.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, that was it. That was it, because I had work to do.
Yeah.
And that was, I could not, see what happens is there's a stereotype that small businesses and minority have.
Yeah.
They won't perform.
Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
Because they don't have the resources or anything like that. But we had to not only try to make a name for ourselves, but we had to compete with our competitors, and we had to compete with the stereotype. Okay. So we made sure everything we did was on time, if not before, because we had to beat that reputation, and then that builds the client's trust. And then is no better marketing material than word of mouth. Okay, so they go and tell their colleagues, and other architects call us, and so our clientele grew. So what happened is, you have that architect we have here in Tampa also has an office in Orlando, and they say, hey, you need to check these guys out. And over time, we started doing projects over there in Orlando, and then other clients over there in Orlando, and then which justifies us opening up an office in Orlando. So we have
Now, you made a key point. You said
Yeah.
justifies, meaning
Right.
that there's enough revenue
exactly
being pulled out of that market to
Right.
justify you opening an office. It's not just a
Exactly.
matter of opening an office. I also know that many times, if you're going to be bidding on contracts in other locales, it's a good idea to have an office, because many times they want domestic companies
Yes.
from those markets as
Right.
well. And so when you're making those decisions, these are calculated decisions. You're not just
Yeah.
sitting there making these on the fly saying, hey, I want an office in Orlando because it's convenient. It makes sense for me to have an office
Right.
there. Yeah.
Right. So that's how that happens, and that's how we have kind of fast forward. That's pretty much how we have offices throughout the whole Southeast. It's clients are national, some international clients, say, hey, we love the work that you did in Tampa. We love the relationship that we have. You understand what our needs are. We have a huge opportunity up here in Atlanta. Was it Dallas, Nashville, Fort Lauderdale? Would you mind opening up an office here? Because like you said, a lot of times because of the political reasons or whatever, they want to have, some of the local people want to give their work to companies that are domiciled there, that they have an office there, so they feel they are keeping the money in their market.
That's right.
So a lot of times, sometimes you open up a physical office. It's just an address, okay, and then you develop that relationship. You work with projects there, and then you get up enough revenue to justify hiring somebody to be there full time.
Yep.
Okay, but initially it takes me and to go back to all these different offices, do the marketing, the same thing what I did in Houston. I have to do it there, and then that's how we expanded. So we have offices in Dallas, Houston, Orlando, Atlanta, Nashville, and Fort Lauderdale.
Well, let's fast forward a little bit because all of those efforts culminated in you beginning to receive some awards around here, and I think one of the first ones you all received, Small Business of the Year from MedWeek during MedWeek a few years ago, and you all were awarded Small Business of the Year, and that's because of the things you've been doing. At that point, I think Voltaire, your reputation was beginning to get out. You guys were growing the business, and you've continued to grow since then. So talk about Voltaire as it is now. What are some of the major projects you guys are involved in, and what type and size of projects that you guys find yourselves getting involved in?
Well, the type of projects we're involved in now, first of all, I have to say the company who I was working for, the larger company, now we're their biggest competitor.
Okay.
So we pretty much do all of we've been fortunate enough to pretty much have a good reputation and do most of all the major projects here in Tampa. So the office building we're in right now, which is over next to Eulaley's, we designed that building, and Beck Construction Group built it, and we moved in at the same time. And that's another strategic move too. That's why I'm end up in that building, is because at the time they had a master plan of how this area is going to be developed. So I said, well, if all this stuff is going to be developed, and I need an office space, and I really can't afford really to move in that building. But I said, if Beck is going to be there, one of our clients, and if I'm in that building with them, I relied on that relationship with their work, giving us the work to help pay for the rent in that building. And then all the development that's going to be going up in that area, I made it difficult for them not to give us that work since we're right here. In the heart of it. So with that, we pretty much doing all that work there. We designed the Eulaley's restaurant.
Okay.
We designed the Waterworks Park next to Eulaley's, and we designed the Pearl Apartments that's being built right now.
Okay.
So we're pretty much, and then we're in the runnings for some other office buildings in that area as well. So other signature projects, we everything that's at the airport, Tampa Airport, all the construction that's going on, we're on all of those projects out there. Since Voltaire has been around, we've been working at the airport ever since. So
you work out there with good people like Cheryl Hawkins, Lita McMillan, and all of those folks.
Cheryl Hawkins is great. She was there with me day one, so she helped me out quite a bit. Le Meridian, downtown, it used to be the old Tampa courthouse. It's converted to a hotel. We did that building, and the Julian B. Lane project. As we grew up in Tampa, the Riverfront Park. Park. We had the Monte Carlos come out there on Sundays.
Yes, sir.
But now we're doing that project as well.
Okay.
So that's just about almost complete.
It's a beautiful park too.
Yes. Right.
I just hope I hope black folks are able to get out there and start using it again like they did back in the day. So there's been some talk about whether or not they're gonna let black folks have part of the park again. But anyway, But
Yeah.
yeah, so but it's a beautiful
Right,
park,
that, and
beautiful
we do
design.
a lot of work with Tampa Housing Authority. So all the Encore project right there on Nebraska and Cass,
Yep.
we involved in the majority of those projects as well. We did the Robert Saunders Library.
Okay.
So a lot of the historic landmarks, whether it's historic to the city of Tampa or historic to our culture, African American culture, like Robert Saunders Library, and we pretty much doing majority of the projects here in the Tampa Bay area.
So now, as we take I want you to give some folks some takeaways. As we wind things up, give them some takeaways. Things you've learned, some pearls of wisdom that you can tell our collaborative partners and some of our clients the things they need to do and focus. We've talked about a lot of those things. If they listen, you've dropped a lot of jewels, okay, about
Right.
your travels, and that's why I like to have these conversational
Right.
pieces, because what people are able to hear is they can hear the venture and the adventure. Okay, very rarely do things start out exactly as we plan them and end up
Yes.
that way.
Right.
But things have a way of working out if we just keep plugging along and moving forward. And it all starts with planning. But talk about some of those things. Just give them some pearls of wisdom and things that they should take away
Right.
as entrepreneurs.
Well, you said the key word right there is planning. It's just that old phrase, plan your work and work your plan. And like I said, it took me 2 years before I started. You have to invest time before starting your business, right? You have to understand your business. Just don't. It's very difficult for anybody to succeed to just kind of wake up and say, "Hey, next week, man, I can really grill, so I'm gonna open up a barbecue shop," right? And you may can, but what you find is you won't be doing a lot of the grilling, okay? Because as your company grows, I don't care if if you in a business making shoes. At some point, you will not be making shoes. You're going to hire people to do the things you love doing while you out trying to keep your business afloat,
Yep.
which means that you have to have the knowledge and understanding of the business side. Okay, so whatever you love doing, that's fine, but you have to have the knowledge of some sort of surface knowledge of what to expect when you go out in business, because a healthy tree, a tree is not healthy with if the roots aren't solid. Okay, and your roots is if you start your base business is understanding everything. You got to have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. And like I said, I read many books, okay, and just to see, and I read books about how businesses fail, and those are the things you say, okay, I know to watch out for, things like that. And like you mentioned before, I went back and got my MBA. One of the things I read about an article, I read in there was 85% of the CEOs of Fortune 500s have their MBA. Well, that's a sign right there, right? I mean, so for me, and it makes sense, because when I started my company, 2 years ago, getting these financial statements was a couple of pages. I mean, a few years ago. Now, it's a stack of papers, and I said, man, I don't know. All I'm looking at now is just the bottom line. All that stuff in between, I wasn't sure about. So that's what kind of motivated me to go back and get my MBA in 2014, so that, again, you constantly have to train yourself and get yourself educated to run a business. And once you know how a business is run and you understand the surface, you can pretty much be successful with that.
What are some of the give us some of the highs and some of the lows that you've seen in your business?
Well, the highs is the being successful, being fortunate, and being able to provide jobs to those that, especially during the time of recession, I was there available. I was able to just scoop them up as they was being laid off. And and just to have some sort of satisfaction,
Mm-hmm.
being able to provide for my family and so forth. That's the highs. That's great. Now the downside is, like I said before, I stayed at the office from Thursday and go back home to Tuesday. Your mind now, physically I go home now, now, but my mind doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the one thing. A lot of times you don't sleep
Mm-hmm.
because you're the center, you're the core of your business. You have to know everything about everything
Mm-hmm.
that's going
Yeah.
on. Okay,
I know that.
it's not just engineering. You got to know about the finances. You know about the legal side, and one of the things too, as you grow and become successful, you become attractive to attorneys and everybody else.
Absolutely.
So you always you become a target. So you get darts thrown at you sometimes. So you because you at that level, where if some things go south, you have to be able to play the game. If you're in the if you're playing with the big boys, you got to learn how to play that game too. So it's you constantly on the move,
Mm-hmm.
constantly on the move. Your mind is always thinking. It's family time is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And
And y'all have a two entrepreneur household. Your
Yes.
wife is an entrepreneur
Right,
and has her own
right,
practice, and,
right.
and then you
Yep.
have your business and,
Yep.
and things like that. And in between, you got to find time for the kids and
That's
do those
correct.
types of things
That's
as
correct.
well,
Right.
and try to provide some semblance of normalcy for
Yeah.
your kids. So, folks, again, entrepreneurship. I mean, that's part of the sacrifice. And I tell you, you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. And those things can become casualties if you're not careful.
Yes.
You really do, because it will test you. And anybody that's been involved in it can attest to those things. You have to work at it. So the successful parts, those highs as you're talking about, when you win a big contract or a client, pats you on the back and say, man, you're the best we've had, and so on and so forth. All of those things are highs. But then, like you say, the lows, sometimes when you go home, you can't turn it off,
Right.
because you're thinking about the next day, because your responsibilities extend beyond just you.
Yes.
And it extends beyond just the family. Like you say, you have other families dependent upon you. I know when I used to have my dry cleaning chain, man, I had like 17 people, and they depended on their checks every week.
Yeah.
And so if you can't produce that, it's not just you that suffers.
Right.
That person is waiting on that paycheck to pay their electric bill, and they think it's going to come. And if you come to them and tell them, look, hey, things are tight this week. I'm not going to be able to pay you. Can you
No.
wait the next week?
No, that's not going to happen.
It's not,
Nope.
it's not
Right.
going to work very well for
Right.
you. But those challenges come,
Yep.
and you've got to know how to deal with those. So Julius, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate it. And folks, Julius will be our featured speaker at the collaborative mixer that the Tampa Bay Black Business Investment Corporation will be holding next week, May 10th, here at 5508. And you need to come and see this campus at 5508. We're holding it here because we partner with them with our Catch program. And for many of you all, people have heard about the Tampa Bay Black Business Investment Corporation's Catch program. That stands for being coachable, action-oriented, time-sensitive, collaborative, and help. And there are a number of people that have gone through that program and found it to be very beneficial and helpful. And again, that's what the BBIC does. First and foremost, we provide capital. We're a capital provider for small businesses, but also that technical assistance and that collaboration. So we like to have these events to get you out, give you an opportunity to meet other people like you, other entrepreneurs. This is not a social event. It is a business event. So we want you to come, spend a couple of hours, listen to people like Julius. We've had some great speakers. Victor Young with Sarasota BMW. We've had Oscar Horton with Sun State Trucking. We had George Tinsley, who owns the Tinsley family of companies. So we've had some great speakers. And Julius, you join that group now as one of our speakers. And folks, we'll look forward to you coming on out. And we'll continue to bring these podcasts so that we can motivate you. Entrepreneurship is one of the key things we're going to need to turn our communities around all across this country. And there is a huge desire for entrepreneurship in our country, in our communities as well.
Right.
So as long as we have the ability to do so, we'll continue to bring these things to you, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week at our collaborative mixer. Julius, do you have any parting words you want to say to our listeners?
Hey, if entrepreneur is what you want to do, just prepare for it. Keep the faith. You gotta stay committed to whatever your dreams are. So I wish you the best.
And you said faith too. He's also very active in his church,
Right.
which happens to be my old church that I grew up in, and my dad is still a deacon there too.
Right,
So,
right.
so folks, it takes all of that. So thank you
Right.
so much. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. Again, this has been an installment from the Tampa Bay Black Business Investment Corporation, and we'll see you next podcast.
All right.